Hi everyone, my name is Shane Monroe and we are going to show you the C64 Game Tool tutorial today. We're going to take you all the way through the process of creating your very own customized game carousel for the C64 Mini computer. And when all is said and done, your retro game's TheC64 device is going to look a lot like mine, stacked full of your favorite Commodore 64 games. Now we know the C64 comes with a bunch of games and you can play your own if you use a USB stick, but it doesn't have a really cool menu and you don't have box art, you don't have metadata or screenshots for those games. It's just a big list that you choose from. When we're done, we're going to help you inject your very own Commodore 64 games directly into the C64 interface. No more USB stick will be required. Every time you turn on your C64 device, it will have your games ready. I've got 80 on mine at this point in time, and you can have up to 150. So I'm very excited to be able to take you through the steps on how to do this yourself. We'll make a couple of assumptions. Today we're going to assume that you're running Windows 10. I'm running 64-bit. We also will assume that you have a USB memory stick available. Anything over a gigabyte will do. If you have a larger memory stick, we'll have to do some extra stuff, but it's no big deal. And finally, we'll assume that you have downloaded the tutorial package that came with this video. So if we can make that assumption, and we will, the first step is we need to extract these files. Well, let's take a look at what we're going to do. Preparation is the key to a successful evolution, and this is no different. So what we're going to be doing is extracting the files that we downloaded. We're going to install and copy some software onto your computer, and we're going to format the USB stick in a manner that is usable by the C64 Mini console. So let's start by right-clicking the zip file that you downloaded, selecting Extract Files, accept the defaults, and Windows will extract the files for us and show us what was in there. Inside the tutorial pack that you downloaded are 3 folders. One contains the software that we're going to be using today, links to certain websites that might be useful in the acquisition of metadata, and finally assets, and we'll show you more about the assets in a little bit. But first things first, let's start talking about the software we're going to be using. We're going to be using NOTEPAD++. We have a portable version here that requires no installation. We have the C64 game tool itself. We have a trial version of directory Opus, which is the Swiss Army knife of file managers. That's going to help do a lot of our heavy lifting for us. We won't even need a graphics editor with that. And a tool called GUI Format for formatting your USB stick. So first, I'd like you to drag Notepad++ onto your desktop. I would like you to open the C64 tool, and within there's a README and a history file you might want to take a look at. But I'd like you to take the folder within and drag that to your desktop. Then we're going to actually install directory Opus. So double-click, accept any warnings, and we'll go through the standard install process. This is a trial version. This is paid software, but we'll be able to use the trial version for our purposes. I highly recommend you pick it up. It goes on sale every so often. It's not super cheap, but if you're a power user and you do a lot of file manipulation, then it is an invaluable tool to add to your arsenal. We're going to go ahead and let it launch. And we're going to select English for us. We're going to go ahead and install the Pro Edition. We're on trial, so it's no reason to use the light one. All right, do we want to launch directory Opus on startup? I like it, so I'll say yes. Would you like it to take over opening folders for you? We're also going to say yes. Would you like it to take over being your FTP tool? Well, that's up to you. It's not germane to this particular tutorial. And we're going to go ahead and allow it to take over zip. And we are going to let it open our picture and sound files. Great. So now directory Opus is installed. And we are ready. We'll go ahead and close that. So this is the first run pop-up of directory Opus 12. We're going to go ahead and click to not see this again. And we're going to go ahead and click New Lister. Well, I'm going to get rid of that other box back there. So this is directory Opus. It looks a lot like any other file manager, such as Windows Explorer. But I assure you that this tool has a lot of features that we're going to be able to use today to make this tutorial a lot easier. The couple of concepts just to understand, because I'll be using this pretty regularly throughout the tutorial. There are two listers here. They use a source and destination type scenario. Whichever one is highlighted, you can see by the blue bar along the top, whichever one is highlighted is the source. So if I were to pick something here and hit copy or move or whatever, it would automatically assume that the destination is the other lister. So if you want to move something from C to E or E to F or G to Y or whatever, you can simply set up your listers and you can see that the source changes depending on which one has focus. I'm going to go ahead and put this into dual horizontal mode. I like things stacked up on top like that. And I'm also going to take this utility bar here that has copy and everything. I'm going to grab that and I'm just going to drag it right in between. So now I can simply work in this little area instead of having to move my mouse all over the place. All right, to make sure our changes stick, we're going to close it and we will reopen directory Opus. And as you can see, our changes have stuck. So we're going to be using directory Opus for a whole bunch of stuff today. But that's pretty much the only tour you really need to understand directory Opus and how we're going to be using it. Next up, let's open this NOTEPAD++. A lot of people probably already have NOTEPAD installed on their computer, but if you don't, let's take a quick look. NOTEPAD is nothing scary. It's just another text editor, just like NOTEPAD on your computer, but it does have a few advanced features, and it does allow you to open up multiple tabs, which will be a lot easier for what we're going to be doing. So that's why we chose NOTEPAD++, and of course it's free, no licensing problems there either. So there's NOTEPAD++. So now we have the tools that we need to get started. We've installed directory Opus. We have the C64 tool copied to our desktop. We have our tutorial files extracted, and we have NOTEPAD++ all ready to go. Great. So, and in looking at our file preparations, we have one more thing to do, and that is to format our USB memory stick. So go ahead and plug your USB memory stick in now and open up directory Opus. Let's get rid of that. There we go. And you should see that you have a removable storage device. I have an F drive, which has an 8 GB USB drive plugged in. If I open that, you can see I have nothing in it. And you can also see that it's already formatted to FAT32. Now, if you have a larger size memory stick, it probably is formatted in NTFS or it's formatted in exFAT. And we can't use either one of those in the C64 device. So you can right-click the drive. Now make sure you take anything off it that you want to keep, because formatting will destroy everything. Select Format, and if you have an option for the file system for FAT32, go ahead and do the format. Chances are likely you probably don't have anything that small laying around anymore, so you probably have a 64 gig or even 128 gigabyte. In that case, we're going to utilize one of the other tools that I brought with us. If you go in to the tutorial pack and go into software, you'll see a tool here called GUI Format. We talked about it earlier. Go ahead and double click that and accept any warnings that Windows gives you. Let's go ahead and close these Opus windows. So now you can see we see the F drive, and we can give it a volume label. You see I've called mine already the C64, and you'll notice that it says it's an 8 gigabyte and it's going to format it in FAT32. We're good to go. Just hit start and it will format it appropriately for you. Great. And we can open up directory Opus again and verify, yes indeed, our USB drive is now formatted to FAT32. So that's it. That takes care of step one for preparation. Let's review that list one more time. Make sure we've got everything checked off. We've extracted the files. We've installed and copied our software, and we formatted our USB stick. Step two is understanding the process of what it is we're going to be doing today. So the process from start to finish looks a little something like this. We're going to get the assets for the games in question. We're going to get disk images, or the ROM images, if you will, if you're from the emulation world. We need a cover, we need screens, and we need metadata for that game. We need to understand how the game needs to be configured, such as which port the joystick gets to be plugged into. Do we need to map any keyboard controls to one of the buttons on the Commodore 64 stick? Certain things like the space bar or a function key or a letter on the keyboard may be necessary while you're playing the game. So we can map those actually to buttons on the C64. You also have to know some other machine stuff. Is it PAL or NTSC? Does it require true drive emulation or slow loading to make sure that the drive is compatible? We're going to be looking at that sort of thing too. It's not nearly as scary as it sounds. Trust me, most of the time you can just use the defaults. Once we've collected all of our assets and brought them into the tool, we're going to build a custom firmware bin file, which we're then going to stick on our USB drive. We're going to stick that into the C64, and we're going to flash that new firmware, which is going to take away all the games that were on there and put in all the games that we want it to be on there. So why don't we, I know you're excited to get started, so why don't we go ahead and actually do one? Let's open Directory Opus and go to the tutorial pack and take a look in the assets folder. I promised you we would get to these, and we certainly will. Inside the asset folder, you find covers, games, metadata, and screens. Well, that sounds familiar. We just talked about those. Inside each one of those, there's a game represented called Dino Eggs. Inside of covers, you'll see a Dino Eggs cover. Inside of games, you'll see the actual Dino Egg game file. Inside of metadata, you'll see there's a text file called Dino Eggs metadata, how appropriate. And under screens, you'll see that I have two screens here. One is a sort of title screen, and the other one is just a sort of in-game screen. So I have provided with you all the assets for successfully inserting one game into the carousel. However, in order for the Commodore 64 to work properly, we have to have 6 games in the system. So we're actually going to be adding a bunch more games into the system before we flash the firmware for the first time. But because everybody's excited, you want to get busy, you want to see the tool in action, you want to see how it works, I provided you one full game with all the data you need to actually insert it. So the game itself, or the tool itself, is the C64 game tool. It's a lot of C's and 6's and whatnot in there. If you open that up, you notice it opens a Directory Opus because we told it to take over folders. There's an executable here. Go ahead and right drag that to your desktop, release it, and select Create Shortcut here. You're going to be using this tool a lot. So yeah, I know it's only one folder in, but believe me, once you've run this 60, 80, 100 times, you'll be happy that there's one on your desktop. So let's take a look at what it looks like. The first run of the C64 tool, there's an end user license agreement you have to agree to. This is essentially standard stuff. When you're hacking a piece of hardware, they want you to know they're not responsible. If you do something terrible, you want to make sure that you can recover it. The creators have no responsibility for anything that you do with this tool, no warranty, implied or otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Standard EULA that nobody reads anyway, but it's worth your time to take a peek through there. Neither they nor I am responsible for anything you do with your Commodore 64 using this tutorial or this tool. So of course you're going to agree, right? Otherwise you would have stopped the video already. All right, so a rather innocuous interface pops up and it tells you that your game database is empty and you should add some games. Well, no kidding. That's exactly what we're here for. So if we take a look at this interface, there's not a whole lot to see. There's a handful of buttons. There's a whole bunch of gray stuff. It's not much to look at, but it does the job. So the first thing we want to do, oddly enough, is to click Add to add a game. So now it's going to ask us for all sorts of good stuff. The game name, the author of the game, the composer, the year the game came out, what genre the game is. Is it a driving game, a platform game? They want files. They want the game file, covers, 2 screens. Sounding familiar? They want to know what input you want to use, and then a whole bunch of weird-looking code going on here. We'll talk about that later. And they want to know what sort of system you're running. If you have a C64 Maxi, then you can use the VIC-20 side of it. In our case, we're going to be sticking to the C64, which is all the C64Mini will do as well, which is what we're flashing. And of course, you see some more what seems to look like little hieroglyphics here for those of you who are not in tune with the C64 vernacular. But that's okay. So a lot of emulation packages allow you to do scraping from some database online. I'm sorry to say that that isn't available here. So we actually have to do things by hand. Yeah, okay, it's sort of a pain, but in order to inject those into the carousel so you never have to actually use a USB stick again, it's worth it. Let's open up NOTEPAD++. And, oh, see, I remembered what we typed. Very neat. So let's also open up that tutorial folder again and go to Assets and Metadata, and there's that text file. Let's go ahead and drag that text file into Notepad, and let's turn on Word Wrap so we can actually see what's going on. And we have some metadata in here. We have a description. We have a publisher or the author of the game. We have the composer of the music for Dino Eggs. We have the year it came out. And I have a couple of notes down here for myself that it runs in port 2 and it uses some basically standard settings. We'll talk more about that later. But for now, let's start filling in some blanks, shall we? Because that's what this tool is for. Let's copy the description into the description field. Easy peasy. Dino Eggs is the name of the game. The author, I use the publisher instead of the actual game author. So Microfun published that. David Schroeder, friend of mine actually, he was the composer of the music. The game was released in 1984. And this is definitely a platformer. Okay, so we're done with the metadata, so let's just shrink that guy. Now we need 4 files. We need the game image, a cover, and 2 screens. I know what you're thinking. We've already got them in our assets. So let's click Game. Let's go to our desktop again. Open up our tutorial pack, Assets, Games. Grab the Dino Eggs D64 disk image. Now we need a cover. Probably know what to do. Go to Assets, Covers. There's the Dino Eggs cover waiting for us. And of course, 2 screens. Assets, Screens. We'll do the title screen first, and then an in-game shot second. Now, I already said that it needs to be in joystick port 2, and I said standard settings, so we probably don't have to change anything. So there we go. I think we're ready to hit OK. Let's see what happens. Boom. Look at this. Now, all of a sudden, the interface comes a little bit more alive. Now, obviously, we only have one game in the interface, so it's going to repeat it over and over and over again. But as you can see, we do have our 2 screenshots. We have our description, we have our metadata, and we have our cover. If we were to bring back the C64 running right now, I'm willing to bet Dino Eggs is in here, and it is. So you can see that what we're seeing on this interface is very, very similar to what you'll be seeing in the actual C64. All right, so we've actually now added a game to the C64 tool. Now, obviously, it's not going to magically appear on your C64. We still have to build the firmware and add more games first. So the next section of this tutorial, we're going to show you how to go and harvest the data that you need, the screens, the box shots, all of this metadata. We're going to show you how to use directory Opus to help you do it. And then we will actually build a firmware file, and we will deploy it, and you'll get to see it working right before your very eyes. But that's it for this particular section. Let's recap what we said we were going to do to understand the process. So in this case, we got our assets. We had disk images, we had the game, we had covers and screens and metadata. We used the control information that we knew about. So we've actually added one. Now we need to add a whole lot more. So in the next section, we're going to talk about the actual process of gathering your assets, which looks a little something like this. The disk images, the cover screens, and metadata, we're going to use our good friend the internet to help us out with that. So stay tuned for the next part, and we'll be right back. Now it's time for us to start gathering assets for the games that we're going to add to the C64 console. As you recall, we need a handful of assets. We need disk images, we need a cover, screens, and metadata. So because we're going to be working with Notepad++ so frequently, let's go ahead and make Notepad++ our default text editor. Open up your tutorial folder, go into Assets, and enter metadata. Right-click on the text file, select Open With, choose Default Program. Check the box Always Use this app to open text files. If you see Notepad++ already here in your options, go ahead and select that, but if not, hit More Apps, scroll down, look for another app on this PC, go to your desktop, Notepad++ Portable, and select Notepad++. Excellent. So now we can verify that when we double-click our text file, we always go to Notepad++, and we definitely want to do that. Okay, so we know that we need a handful of items. We need assets. We need the game images. We need screens. We need metadata. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 6 games to the Commodore 64 Mini as part of this process. So I'm going to go ahead and open, by double-clicking this bar, I'm going to open up 6 new text files. Each one of these is going to hold the metadata for the game in question. Right now there's nothing. But as you can see, the first thing I added was a description for each of our games. So we'll be doing that. I now recommend you open up your browser. We're using the Brave browser, but any browser will do. And we are going to open up Moby Games. There's a link to Moby Games inside your links folder. Let's go ahead and reduce that. And I'm just going to type it in. Okay. So we're going to need 6 of these. And I'm going to keep these all open in separate windows just so we can jump back and forth. And you'll understand why we don't do these one at a time and we kind of do them in a series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so now all we really need to do is know what games we're looking for. Let's go ahead and just open Moby Games in each one of these. You'll find that adding games to the Commodore 64 Mini is sort of an assembly line process. You'll get a workflow that works for you. I'm showing you the workflow that works for me. Okay, so now we have Moby Games open in 6 browsers. As you recall, we have 6 windows. I can go ahead probably and close Dino eggs here. So we have 6 windows open to hold our text files, and we're ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is move over some games, the games that we're actually going to do. Now, you could go online and search and find Commodore 64 game disk images. For the purposes of this tutorial, though, I've already got a set of games that I'd like us to use, so I'm copying those over. And inside here, I have 4 games that I've chosen specifically for the purposes of this tutorial. And Megastyle, the group that actually wrote the C64 game tool, has provided us with 2 more games that we can add to our carousel. And there's some interesting things we get to do with that stuff, so it'll be good. So we're going to add a total of 6 games. So in this case, we've got Frogger, Jumpman, Realm of Impossibility, and Volfied. And it's like, wow, what a weird set. Why aren't we using, like, bigger, higher, more known games for the Commodore 64? And there's reasons I chose all of these. They'll all make sense at some point. So let's go ahead and minimize our browser size here so we can go ahead. I'm going to search for each game in turn. Frogger, Jumpman, Realm of Impossibility, Volfied, and if I look in here, I've got Exploding Fish. Sounds like fun. And I've got Man Cave. All right, somehow I must have missed one. Volfied. Did I get Volfied? Jumpman, Frogger, Realm, Explode. Okay, yeah, so Volfied's the one we're missing. Okay. So now I've searched for all the games. And I'm going to go ahead now and save my text files off. Save as. And there's Dino eggs metadata. So let's start from the top. Frogger. And again, you might find a way that you like to do this that makes more sense for you. Jumpman. Probably need to put the text extension on there. We'll fix that later for the other one. I'm just going to call this Realm. Can't type, it's early. TXT. It's Frogger, Jumpman, Realm. I don't know why Volfied seems to be the one I want to keep missing this morning. Volfied, metadata. And you don't have to call it metadata, you can call it whatever you want, but just for the sake of keeping things consistent here. And then we had Man Cave. And we had Exploding Fish. Oops. Also working on a little tiny screen here. And so real quick, we're going to go ahead and close the one I forgot to add the TXT, which was Frogger. Let's go to our assets here. We'll do that in this other window so we can keep this open. Desktop, tutorial pack, assets, metadata, and you can see that Frogger is missing the TXT extension, so we'll hit F2 on that. Oops, hit F2 on that, and add the text extension. Perfect. Now they'll all open in NOTEPAD++ should we need them in the future. Great. So now we have all of our metadata put together for all of these, except for, let me see. Oops, too big. Oh, that's because we closed Frogger. Let's reopen Frogger. Perfect. Okay, we'll get rid of this unused one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one else did I not open? Jumpman, Realm, Exploding Fist. Oh, Dino eggs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're still missing one. What are we doing here? It's way too early in the morning for this stuff. Man Cave, Realm, Volfied, Frogger, Jumpman. So the easy way to do it, if you like, is just close all of these, drag them all in here. That way you don't have to figure it out. That's why I love NOTEPAD++. You can do crazy stuff like that. Okay, so now we have all of our items open. Let's move that to the side, and let's go ahead and shrink this just a bit. All right, so let's go to our first search result, which is, well, let's do those last. Let's go to Frogger. Jumpman. All right, we'll do Jumpman first, whatever. Okay, so Jumpman, we're looking for the results of our search, and we have a whole bunch of Jumpmans in here, but we're looking specifically for Jumpman for the Commodore 64. Okay, so here is our Jumpman entry. So everything that we need is kind of here, right? So we have a description, so we can cut and paste that description. I'm going to go ahead and remove any line feeds in there, so it's one long description. At this point, look down at the length of your text file. You can only have a description of about 550 characters total to fit properly on the carousels area. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you keep it around 500-ish, and this fits just fine. We also need to know the publisher and the composer. So if you open this up a little bit, sometimes the composer will be under music over here on the side. In this case, it's Randy Glover. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Okay. So our publisher is Epix. Our composer is Randy Glover. Our year is 1983. And I don't really know anything else about it, honestly, at this point. There's some trivia. Sometimes there'll be information about what port to use, what joystick port to use, but unfortunately we have none. So there, we have our metadata for Jumpman. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, let's not close that one. Let's go to the next one. Frogger. All right, so we've got a lot of Froggers. Frogger 64. Wonder which one's which. Frogger series. So this can be a little crazy. So let's go in here and look at this one. This is the Parker Brothers Frogger, and I'm going to go look at the screenshots just to see if it's the one I know. Yes, this is that weird blue screen that looks like it was made out of ASCII characters, so we know we're in the right one. In some cases, understanding what the game looks like may be helpful. There are several games like Mario Brothers and others that are actually made by multiple companies, so you have to know that you've got the right one. So just like before, we're going to go to our Frogger. We're going to grab this whole description for starters, copy it, delete our line feeds, and it's 706 characters. We're going to have to tidy this up a little bit. So we'll take a look. Let's see. The road is filled with cars and trucks. The river water itself is fatal, as are snakes. Okay, so let's take out these parentheses here. Let's take out a short time. Yeah, they'll figure that out when they play. Stay away from their face. That's probably a useful tool, but we're going to take that out. We're trying to tidy this up, folks. 633 lines. So let's do this. Let's just take out this whole last piece. 402. That'll work. Of course, you will want to make the description read how you like it. This was published by Sierra Online. And do we have a musical artist on the side? We don't. So I'm going to say unknown. You may choose to use the developer. There was only one developer, Chuck Benton, so he's probably the guy that wrote the music too, but I can't be sure, so I'm going to put unknown, 1983. And do I have any information about the port number that's used or anything? References, releases. No, not much going on there, so we're going to have to do a little exploratory on that one ourselves. We're going to save that metadata off and move to the next one. Now, Realm of Impossibility was also known as Zombies. Now, fortunately, you can see the cover here for Realm of Impossibility, so you kind of know that you've got the right game. But there are times when the game, as the name you heard, it may not be the game it was actually published under. So let's go to Commodore 64. And let's go ahead and go to Realm over here. All right, well, this looks fairly short. Let's grab all of that description. We'll copy it over, take out our line feeds, and it's 546. Okay, let's see if we can tidy this up a little bit. So let's see, let's just make we'll take this text off and just make it, the protagonist has to fight the monsters, blah, 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 510. 13 dungeons with 129 room, cooperative modes available. 510 might be okay. We're going to leave it. This was published by Electronic Arts. Made by, let's see, original music by David Warhol. Okay, so now we have a composer, 1984. And honestly, we don't have any, we have no information about what port to use or anything like that. So we'll take what we can get and move on. Next one was Exploding Fish. Okay, so Exploding Fish and Man Cave are custom games that are made by the guys Megastyle, the group. So they may not have an entry in here. And I'm not seeing anything that looks like that. So we have something, we don't have metadata for this at the moment. What about Man Cave? No Man Cave, unfortunately. And finally, we are at Volfied. So again, we find the game Volfied for the Commodore 64. And, ooh, we got a really long description here. Let's take this first paragraph. This becomes sort of an art form of its own, making this thing fit. Spaceship is returned, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. This, let's take this whole thing out. Volfied is similar to Kix. Okay. 530. Let's go ahead and just make it the player takes control, 496 characters. Perfect. This is published by Empire Software. Music. Do we have any music? We have sound effects. Ah, what the heck. Let's give the guy a credit. Mark Wilson. 1991. And trivia, sound. Nothing else in there, so we're going to have to do some exploratory on that on our own. Okay, so right now we're missing a couple, right? Man Cave, so I'm going to just drag that tab to the end. And also Exploding Fish, we don't have any metadata for that. So we've got 2 that we don't have metadata for, but we have 4 that we do. So let's go ahead and start gathering the other assets for these items. Let's go back to Jumpman. Okay, so Jumpman, we also, as you recall, if you recall, we need screens and box art. Well, look at this. We've got box art right here. So we've got box art. It doesn't say Commodore 64 on it, but that's okay. Sometimes you'll get box art for the version like Atari ST or Amiga or whatever. This one doesn't have any at all, so this is pretty good. So let's go ahead and right-click Save Image As, and let us take this to the desktop, into our tutorial pack, assets, covers. So we're just going to rename this cover to Jumpman, keep it simple. And we'll just call it Jumpman cover. Okay. Now we need some screenshots. So let's see what we got in here. Okay, so I like to do title screens or loading screens for the first item, right? That's kind of iconic. That's an iconic loading screen, right? So let's right-click and save image as. We're going to go to our assets and screens. We're going to call this Jumpman. Oops, I keep moving out of my virtual window. Jumpman -00. And then we're going to go back to our screenshots and find something that looks representative of the gameplay. How's this look? That's him dying. That's pretty fun. Let's do that one. Save image as. And we'll just click that once to make it 00, and we'll just change it to 01. There we go. Now we've got two. Let's jump back in here real quick and make sure that we're doing this right. Desktop, tutorial, assets, covers. There's our Jumpman cover, screens, Jumpman screens. Awesome. Okay, so now we have everything that we need. So let's go ahead and go to our games folder under assets while we're here. I copied a folder onto the desktop, right? So we're going to go ahead and move Jumpman out of my games folder, and we'll put it into our assets games folder. Right, so we're going to keep everything together. And trust me, you'll understand when we assembly line this at the end of the video, this will go a lot faster if everything's in the same spot. So we're done with Jumpman. We've got our assets. We got all of our assets. We don't need Moby Games anymore, so we can close it. So while we're here, let's go ahead and copy Frogger over to our asset games folder. We're done with Jumpman too, so we can close that file. Let's move to Frogger. So now we need a cover. It says Commodore 64 on it. Awesome. Save image as. Assets, covers, and this is Frogger. Go to screenshots. Now, if you really wanted to assembly line this, we could jump over here, right? Because we're already in the covers folder when we save. So let's jump over to zombies. Again, your workflow may vary. I'm going to save this image as inside of covers, realm, okay, exploding fish did not have anything, man cave did not have anything, so let's close those, and Volfied, let's get the cover. It's in another language. Are we okay with that? Maybe. In some cases, there's multiple covers uploaded, so let's see if there are. There's 13 more covers. Let's take a look at what other covers they offer. Oh. For the Commodore 64, nothing. All right, who cares if it's in German, right? Save image as. We're still in covers, so that's perfect. Volfied. All right, awesome. So we're done with Volfied now. So where's my Volfied text? We've already saved it. Let's close it. We haven't got our screenshots yet from Volfied. So let's do a title screen. Save image as. Go to Assets, Screens, Volfied 00. All right, and back to Gallery, and what looks pretty good for Volfied? What's the screen? Ew, nasty colors on that thing. What about this one? Yeah, that looks better. Save image as. Click it once to get the file name. Don't double click it or you'll overwrite it. 1. Excellent. All right, so we're done with Volfied. We got screens. We got our metadata. All right, we already closed it. And we got everything we need, so let's close that. Let's go ahead and get screenshots now from Realm of Impossibility. There's our title. Save that. So screens, Realm 01. Oops, well, that's all right. I can rename that. Let's do that real quick. Let's keep everything consistent. Screens, Realm 01. Let's rename it to, oops, 00. Perfect. And let's get some representation of the gameplay. That looks pretty good. Image as. Get the file name with a single click. All right. So now we've got 2. We see we have 2 for Jumpman, 2 for Realm, 2 for Volfied. Awesome. Let's get rid of that. Frogger, we still need some screenshots for that. Let's grab the title screen, which is rather lackluster, but you know, let's be consistent. 00. And all of these look about the same, don't they? Let's just save these off. Single click to get the file name, Frogger 01. Okay, so let's go back to NOTEPAD. We've got Frogger, we got its metadata, we got its cover. We got the cover, didn't we? Let's double check. Let's bring neat little trick here. If you want to copy the current location of this lister over to here, you can click this little down caret thingy. It'll copy it over. We can now jump over to our covers. We've got Frogger, Jumpman, Realm, and Volfied. So we got all of our covers. So we can close Frogger. We can close Realm. And we've got these other two guys that we're going to have to go and find information about. I did this on purpose to give you some ideas to how you can find this information if you don't have it all neatly handed to you at Moby Games. So we have our screens, 2, 3, 4. So what are we missing here? We got Volfied, we got Realm, we got Jumpman, we got Frogger. Well, I guess we only have 4, so we got good. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. All right, so we have our assets to add 4 games to the carousel. So what we really need to do, though, is figure out what we're going to do with these other 2 games. Let's go ahead while we're thinking about it and go to our the games folder where I stashed all those games that I brought over. And go to our assets, go to games. We got 2 of the extra games that we added, but we're missing, it looks like, Volfied and Realm. We'll just move those over. And under these mega style ones, let's get those 2 disk images and move those over. Now, it just so happens that I managed to gather some assets before we got started here. So let's go ahead and we'll flip ourselves into a more visual mode inside of Directory Opus. So with this lister selected, we're going to click this guy right here and change this into thumbnail mode. Awesome. Let's go back to assets and covers. Do we have cover images already provided? In this case, yes. The developer sent me over images. So I can see 2 cover images. Oops. 1, 2. Let's move those over. All right, so now I've got 2 covers for those games. So let's rename these things. Exploding Fish. Keep moving my cursor out of my virtual man cave. All right, so now we actually have covers. Of course, I didn't name anything right other than Jumpman. So I'll show you guys a neat little Directory Opus trick just because, you know, I love Directory Opus so much. Select the things you want to rename, hit rename. This gives you an advanced rename dialog. So for all old names, let's call it the old name and then add a dash cover to it. You look down here, Exploding Fish becomes Exploding Fish dash cover, etc., etc. We'll just go ahead and hit OK. And look, now all my naming is consistent. If you would have done that by hand, it would have taken you a lot longer. But another one of those neat little Directory Opus things that I like to share with people. Okay, so we have covers for everything. Do we have screens? We don't have screens. So Exploding Fist has a cover. Man Cave has a cover. So let's go ahead and move those over to our covers. Make sure those are highlighted and move. Once again, these are named wrong. So let's rename them. All file names to all file names dash cover. Perfect. Now everything lines up. Ooh, what's this 01 stuff? Let's get rid of that. I know you don't have to be this anal in gathering, but I tend to reuse this stuff. Okay, great. So we have covers for everything. We have screen. We need some screens here. I'm just going to kind of wing it. Let's take a look here. That looks like a good screen, right? And do we have title screens? Okay, we do have a title screen for Man Cave, but we don't have a title screen for Fish. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and grab. Okay, copy. So Fish we have no title screen for, so we just have game screens. So let's go ahead and rename this Exploding Fish 00. Now, instead of actually having to hit enter and then go down and select the next one, we can just arrow down. So you can actually rename sort of en masse here, which is really, really helpful. Exploding Fish -01. There's a reason I'm using Directory Opus for all of this stuff. We'll arrow down. Let's call this Man Cave -00 and Man Cave -01. All right, great. Now we are actually maintaining a consistent, well, almost a consistent naming strategy. I messed up my Dino eggs 1 and called them 1 and 2. That's okay for now. So we have covers. We have all of our games in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have all of our screens. So now the only thing we need is some metadata for this man cave and exploding fist, right? So let's go ahead. Let's bring up, we have 2 areas here. So let's go ahead and start Googling, right? Man cave C64. Oh, well, look at this. All right, cool. Now available. The game revolves around our hero arriving at his home one evening. Player must guide to catch up, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, this looks fairly familiar here. We'll just go ahead and cut and paste. Take away our spacing. 418 characters. Sold. And do we have an author? Well, we know it comes from Megastyle. Do we have a composer? Are there any credits in here? Oh, here we go. Perfect. Programmed graphics music. All right, cool. So music is by Roy Whitting. And do we have a year? 2019. Brand new game. All right. Now we've got metadata for Man Cave. Now I'm guessing that these came from the same site. So with any luck, let's go to the C64 releases. Show me exploding fish. And there it is. Perfecto. Oh, they have a loading screen here for exploding fish. Let's save it. I'm going to go ahead and take it. Screens. So remember our exploding fish 0 was just another game screen. Let's just overwrite this one here. Cool. Now we've maintained some consistency. Let's see if we got a storyline here. All set sail. Make the sea a safer place. Blah, blah, blah. What's our text look like? 405. Awesome. And again, this is by... Oh, wait a minute. You know what? This isn't Megastyle that released this. This is Cytronic software. Let's fix that on Man Cave too. Cytronic. And who's our composer? Music by Andrew Fisher. So we have a new game in town. Oops. Hang on. Switch back. And this is 2019 as well. All right, so we have everything that we need here. All right, we have metadata. Oops, we didn't save that guy. All right, we have metadata for both of our games. So now we should go, if we go to our assets, we have metadata for all of them. Amazing. So what we have done here is we have collected all of the metadata we need. We can now move into the phase where we're putting them all into the carousel. So we're going to go on to the next part, which is part 4. Or step 4, where we actually inject all of these using the C64 game tool. And we're going to do that right now. All right, we're now ready to move on to step 4, which is actually adding the games to the carousel. So let's review our step 4s. Convert any assets into PNG. Now, we went ahead and gathered all of our assets ahead of time, but something we didn't think about was, are all of the files in a format ready to go for use with the C64 tool? I guarantee some of them are not PNG, so we're going to go ahead and tidy those guys up. We're going to create a new entry in the C64 game tool. We'll add the game, and then we're going to pre-test each game with Vice. We'll probably only do one just to show you how it's done, and you can do the rest of them on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of that guy. And let's open up your assets folder. Oops, on the desktop. Your tutorial pack assets. Okay, so let's go in and look at our covers. So as we can see here, we do have some GIF and JPEG images. We're going to have to go ahead and convert those. So I told you Directory Opus was going to pay for itself, and now it's going to do its job. Select all the non-PNG files that you have. Right-click, select Convert Image, and Convert PNG. Everything else is unchecked, and hit OK. And we'll just go ahead and hit all. No, we'll skip that one. I guess we did have another one in there. All right. So now let's verify we have all of our images in PNG format. we can go ahead and get rid of all the JPEGs and GIFs. And as you can see, we have 8 covers, 8 games, are all PNG. Let's go do the same thing with our screenshots. Ooh, lots of GIFs in here. Bunch of PNGs though too. So we're already sorted by type. So let's grab these GIFs and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Convert PNG. Everything else is unchecked. Hit all. Great. And now we can just hit delete and get rid of those. All right. And inside, of course, we still have our metadata. Let's go ahead and open that metadata right now with Notepad++. Oh, I already have it running. Okay, now Notepad is open. We have all of our tabs along the top, right? Great. And we have in here 6 games that we're adding, and the 7th is Dino eggs. All right, we are ready to go. I've already got all of my metadata files open. Let's go ahead and make sure that word wrap is on. Good. All right, now we can see everything. Excellent. Open the C64 game tool. You can see that Dino eggs is still there right where we left it. We're going to go ahead. I'm just going to move this up to the corner here. And we're going to hit add. I'm going to bring up this window as well. All right, so the first game we're going to add here, well, let's do Exploding Fish first. So we're going to type in the name. And from here we can cut and paste, right? So we're going to grab the description, paste, grab the author, grab the composer, grab the year. And this was sort of a, I'm just going to call this an adventure game. We're going to go ahead and choose the game from the Assets folder, Exploding Fish. We're going to go to the cover and find Exploding Fish, Screens, Exploding Fish 0, Exploding Fish 1. Okay, and so we don't know, I didn't make any notes about whether this was a Joystick 2 game or a Joystick 1 game or if we need any special keys. This is something we'll actually test. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. All right, now we have 2 games on the carousel. As you can see, that was really pretty easy. Once you have all the assets in front of you, it makes this whole process a lot easier. Let's do Jumpman next. Author is Epics, Music Guy, Year, Description, okay, Game, Assets, Games, Jumpman, Cover, Assets, Covers. Where's that Jumpman? There he is. Screen 1, Assets, Screens, Jumpman, and Jumpman. Perfect. I have no notes about Jumpman. I can tell you right now that Jumpman does require some custom values to be put into your joystick configuration. That's something that we'll find out when we go through the testing phase. But for now, ooh, this is also a platformer. All right, now we have Jumpman. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the games to the carousel now. All right, we'll do one more. How about that? And then I'll add the remaining ones. Quickly, without holding up the video too much longer. Author, composer, year, call it a maze game, get our tutorial or our description, and game, assets, games, Frogger, cover, assets, cover, Frogger, screen 1, assets, screens, Frogger, okay. This one I can also tell you completely reuses a weird control scheme, which is another reason why I picked it for this demo. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add the remaining ones here really fast. I'm going to speed up the video so you don't have to pay attention to everything. And we'll be back once I've added the rest of the games to the carousel. All right, and we're back. We have added the remaining items to the carousel. So as you can see, all of our games have been added. Excellent. So again, it's a lot faster if you have all the assets on hand and ready to go ahead of time. So one of the things that I did mention was that you could run into some problems after you flash this to your C64. It's a little bit harder to make changes, right? So if you deploy this to your C64 Mini or your Maxi, and then you find that there's keys that need to be redefined, or you'd use the wrong joystick port, you may find that you'll have to flash over and over and over and over again. That takes a lot of time. Instead, they have given us a built-in emulator to test a few things. So let's take a look at Frogger. If you double-click the game, it'll open up a special version of the Vice C64 emulator. And as you can see, it seems to be running okay. So now we need to start, enter the up key. What's that all about? Okay, so in this particular case, it doesn't use a joystick at all, but it uses the keyboard. Well, that's kind of uncomfortable. So what we want to do now is start paying attention, right? So I'm going to open up my buddy NOTEPAD again. Told you we were going to end up using NOTEPAD a lot. And in NOTEPAD, I'm going to take some notes. I could just reopen Frogger, actually, right? I could reuse the same thing. Why not? All right, so Frogger, I need movement keys. And for these keys, it looks like I can go ahead and choose them, but what if I don't want to have to select these when I'm on the C64, right? I mean, I'm going to have to actually fill these in with keyboard commands using the virtual keyboard. Oh, that's gross. Okay, well for now, let's use the standard up and down, or the standard movement keys for a PC, which is W for up, S for down, A for left, D for right, fast or slow? I guess fast. All right, so these are the keys that we suddenly need to make this game work, right? We need W, S, A, D, and apparently we need a yes or a no. So I'm assuming we're just going to have yes for it to be satisfactory. So we already need to map, well, these will map to the joysticks themselves, all right? And this one, this Y key, we could map to one of the buttons. So are our choices satisfactory? We'll say yes. Okay, so now if we were able to start the game, what would that look like? Enter key, space bar, movement keys. Nope, so it must be a function key. F1? Nope. F3? Nope. F5? Oh, F5 turned the music off. Let's make that note. F5, music, toggle. Okay, and so maybe F7 starts the game. We sure it wasn't F1? Oh, it was F1. We just had to hit it a couple of times to make it register. Okay, so now do our movement keys work? There we go. Okay, I think we're in better shape now. Okay, so now we know what we need to make the game work. From the time we boot it up, we're going to need these keys. What if there was a better way of doing this? Now, we could do that, but then we'd have to also assume that everybody entered these exact keys, these 4 keys, when they did the game. We'll come back to this. There's got to be a better way to take care of that. I also promised that Jumpman was another game that used some weird stuff, and let's go find out what I mean by that. So we open up Jumpman. Let's run it in Vice. And let's see what sort of nonsense keys we're going to need to get this game running. First of all, we have a really long startup, right? We have crack screens, intro screens, documentation screens, run stop key. All right, so we needed a space and run stop so far. Oops. That's what we needed so far. And is this actually loading? Oh, spacebar. Crap. All right, so we need spacebar. Spacebar. Oh, we already got space. Okay, that's all right. And then we need enable or disable fast load. We better disable it. So we need a D. No, not disposal. Stupid thing. So we need a D key, disable, high scores or trainer. High scores. So I need a D, an H, load or reset high scores. I guess reset them. So I guess we'll need an R. Okay, now we're actually in the game. Now what do we need to get the game working? All right, spacebar maybe? Nope. Oh, wait. How about enter? Oh, really? The enter key? Who does that? Okay, so return. We need the return button. Oh, good. We need numbers too. Oh my God. Okay, so we're gonna need, I guess, one for beginner. Then we need enter again. We already got that. Return. So we need one. Enter. How many players? Well, we already have a 1, so I guess 1's covered. And let's see if it defaults to joystick port 2. So let's see if port 2 is actually the controller. So we use the arrow keys on the keyboard. Yes. Okay, so port 2 is good. Left control is our fire button. Perfect. God, he runs so slow. I know there's a way to change the speed by pushing a number as you start the So I'm going to go ahead and kill him off. And before I see, my run speed is 4. The lower your run speed, the faster you are. All right, so I didn't do it fast enough. All right, here, let me just kill him again. All right, so this time as I spawn, I'm going to hit 3. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. There we go. Well, that's better. That's a more appropriate speed. So now I need a 3 also. 1 and a 3. Wow, that's a lot. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's too many buttons. I don't think I'm going to have enough buttons on the controller to map all those out. But if I were to get rid of the intro, if I went right to the main screen, I could get rid of all of these other buttons. I have return 1 and 3. I could do that. Something for us to think about. All right, and we will take a look at one more game. We'll take a look at, oh, look at this Realm of Impossibility box. It's all squished. Well, that's because it uses a folio box. I don't remember our original one looking like that. Let's go into our tutorial pack, our assets, covers, Realm. Yeah, it's a square. And so when it resizes it, it crunches it up to like a box cover. So we have a couple of choices here. We can either try to edit this into a more of a box size shape, maybe by cropping the edges off, right? We could do that. Or we can live with it squished, right? For now, I guess we're going to live with it squished, but that's something we could definitely tidy up later on. Let's check out old Dino eggs. How does that look? Oh, that's right. Let me open up NOTEPAD again here real quick. Jumpman we determined was port 2 already. All right, enough of this. So we have a space. I bet we're going to need a run stop again. And we do. What else are we going to need? What was this? Where did we just run? Dino eggs. Let's open that one. All right. Space, run stop, unlimited lives. Oh my God, trainer stuff. So an N for no, 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 no. Space. Okay, we already have a space. All right. Now let's try port 2's controller. I press the fire button. And okay, good. Perfect. So we know that the controller works. That's something. Okay. So we know it's port 2 as well. All right. So we're going to save that off. All right. So we could go through and do the exact same thing with all of the other items, but we do have some things we need to work on, right? This Frogger is just, this is a complete mess. It really is. Even if we map the keys out, well, let's go do that. Fine. Let's just assume people are going to use that. Let's go into Frogger, hit edit, and we, well, it doesn't really matter, Joy 2 or not, but let's go ahead and click this, and we're going to map some keys. So for up, we said we were going to map W. For down, we were going to do S. for left, we were going to do A, and for right, we were going to do D. All right, and then what else did we say we needed? We needed a Y, so let's map the A button. Oh, wait a minute, that's already mapped to it's already mapped to function keys. Which ones do we need again? 5, and we needed 1 to start the game, and we needed 3 to toggle the music, or 5 to toggle the music. So I guess for the B button, we could use that for a yes or a Y. For your choices are satisfactory. Okay, so now we have buttons assigned. We'll go ahead and hit OK. Let's go ahead and we're just going to have to test it out when we go, and we'll see how it works. All right, so these are the sorts of things you're going to have to do. Jumpman, we could do the same thing. But I know you're dying to see how this thing actually works. So when we go through testing, we're going to find out that we're going to have some problems. We've tried to tackle a couple of those problems already. But you will run into more, and the more you do this, the more familiar and experience you have with doing this sort of project, you'll start to get better and better at understanding what it is you need to do. But in the meantime, we have a few games to work with. So I think at this point in time, I think we're ready to move on to step 5, which is to actually build our firmware. Yes, so in building the firmware, we're going to select some options to build. We're going to do a first run backup version of our firmware image, and then we're going to save it off to our USB, which, as you will recall, we formatted earlier on in the tutorial as my F drive. It's already formatted as FAT32, so I am prepared. So let's go ahead and remove that. Let's reopen that tool, and we're going to click Make Firmware. All right, so another kind of lackluster screen. We do have some options down here, and we need to pay close attention. First off, we're going to always delete all the games first. We want to clear the carousel out. We're not trying to add more on top of it. And when you do that, it automatically checks backing up the games, which we want to do that. For the first time you build your firmware, you want to back up your NAND. And this is the operating system partition of memory. This is useful for recovering your machine if something terrible goes wrong. Now, you'll have to do some sort of weird hardware crap to do that. You can't do that through the interface, but if you don't have the NAND, you have no positive way of bringing that back. And if you want to have a little icon added to your carousel that lets you run Commodore 64 Basic, you can check this. So we're going to do that. Once you have all of your options selected, click Make. Wow, that was quick. So if you look through the log, it added our assets, our games, and then it created a firmware file. It created a copy of it in our desktop folder. It says all the games are going to be deleted, games will be backed up, NAND and NAND B will be backed up, blah, blah, blah. So now we're ready to go ahead and save this off to our F disk. In this case, that is our USB stick, and hit save. That's it. Wow, that's really it? Okay. We'll hit cancel. We'll close this. Let's open up directory Opus. Take a look at F. There it is. Wow. It was really that simple. The actual building and flashing is the easy part. It's actually putting everything together and getting everything right that actually is the problem. Okay. Wow, that was a quick and easy step, right? So we went ahead to review. We went ahead and we selected our options. We did a first run backup edition. The next time we do it, we will not choose to back up the NAND. We are ready to do the deed. We're ready to flash the firmware. We're going to flash it. We're going to back up the NAND files that we get. We're going to back up the NAND files that we get as backups, and then we're going to test our games. Well, that's very exciting. So let's go ahead. And you can go ahead and eject that disk. Everybody's opinion varies on whether you can get away with not ejecting your disks in Windows 10. You know what? Be safe. Hit eject. All right. I have ejected. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pull that drive out. I'm going to plug it into my C64 Mini, and I'm going to turn it on. And I bet you'd like to be able to see what's going on, too. Volume down a little bit so I'm not competing with it. Oh, hang on a second. It's being finicky, the Elgato, you know. There we go. Perfect. All right. So we have a problem. The USB drive is not being recognized by the C64. I can tell you why is because I cheated and I did not use a proper memory stick. This is a good lesson for everybody. If you try to get away by using a USB stick reader with a flash memory device, you may or may not have that level of success. So I'm going to use one that I've already pre-prepared. So moral of the story is, don't try to get around using a USB flash memory stick by trying to use a micro SD card and a memory card reader. Chances are likely it will not work. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to plug mine in. This is my master one that I've been working on. And you'll know that it works because it's going to pop up right there. Lessons learned. Okay, so we are now ready to go ahead and flash. So you're going to select the wrench, which is the device settings, and go to System Information. And boom, you have a firmware upgrade available. Why, yes, I do. I'm dying to do that. Thank you for asking. This is the actual firmware flashing process. All right. Now, this particular firmware is not doing a backup because I've already done one. For the sake of argument, what we may do is I might just copy that bin file over to my regular flash drive and try it out. Okay, it reboots. And in the background, while that's doing its thing, okay. So now we're back. Now, of course, the games that we put on there aren't there because this is my drive, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to make the firmware again with the NAND backup. I'm going to save this one to my other working. Okay, firmware copied. And we're going to eject it. And we're going to try this again, using the proper bin file this time. Ha, perfect. Now let's see what happens. Ooh, see? That time it ran 3 times because it's doing backups and other stuff that's a little bit different. When you're just doing it without backups, you'll only see that happen twice. And we're rebooting. I'm going to go ahead and take that stick out, move it back to my computer. Okay, now what do we have here? Dino eggs, exploding fish, Frogger, Jumpman, Man Cave, Realm of Impossibility, Volfied. So our games are all on there, plus the Commodore 64 basic language as what was promised. So let's go see what that Frogger looks like, since we already know that we might have some fun with that. Okay, so yes. So now we have to use the virtual keyboard. Gross. W. Down was S. Left was A. Right was D. And yes, our choices are satisfactory. Oh, fast and slow. My bad. Fast. And our choice is satisfactory. Yes. Where's the Y? There we go. Okay. And I've got the sound turned way down here. I'll turn it up a little bit so you can enjoy. All right, cool. So we said that F1 was to start the game, which should be the A button. Ah, look at that, it is. What about the button that's supposed to turn that music off? Yep, that works too. Awesome. Hey, look at that. I'm controlling it properly with my controller. Now, of course, you can't be expected to do that. That's just ridiculous stuff, right? We're going to have to do something about that, and we're going to. I'm going to show you exactly how to get around that exact problem. All right, so obviously the same sort of problem with different controllers, different control methodologies, mapping your keyboard, all of these sorts of things can be a problem. So what do we do about that? Well, we're going to go ahead and head on back. Let me go ahead and shut this guy down. Okay, so if we bring open that E drive that we were working on, you can see I've got a lot of junk in here because this is my working one, since I tried to cheat and use the other one. So what we have here are backup files that we're going to want to go ahead and take off. You'll notice that there's some that say NAND backups. We are definitely going to want to pull anything that says 223, right, because that's the date. These are the files we're going to want to back up. We're going to put these somewhere safe. Let's put those inside of our tutorial pack right on the root. So now we have a backup of our 2 NANDs, and we have a backup of the games that we pulled off last time. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Now we're in good shape. So, back to the problem at hand. What are we going to do with our buddy Frogger? There's got to be something we can do, right? Absolutely, absolutely. So, what if we could actually start Frogger? Let's go back to our Frogger metadata. Got all these keys. What if we could just do it right from the main screen, right? So what if you're actually already past all of this? We'll need the music toggle in the start game, but I bet we could get rid of all of these. Go ahead and launch Frogger inside of Vice, right? And we're going to do that whole setup nonsense that we did before. Down, left, right, fast, and so I'm going to get ready to snapshot. So snapshot, save snapshot. I want to do it before the music starts playing, right? So I'm going to hit Y because I know that's the last thing that happens, and I know that the very next screen it's going to start the game. So here we go. Y, snapshot, save. Okay. So we're going to go in here, and we are going to, oops, not there. We're going to go to our desktop. Tutorial, assets, games. We're going to call this Frogger snapshot.vsf. Save. So we can test that by loading a snapshot image. That seems all right. So let's do this. Let's close that. We're going to launch Vice all by itself. Start a C64. All right. So now we haven't done anything. Let's just reload that snapshot and see how we do. Ew, it's kind of, that sound kind of sounds screwball, but for the sake of argument, we should be good, right? We should be able to just start the game. All right. And our keys still work. All right. So let's change this guy out. So we're going to go back to Frogger. We're going to edit it. And instead of using our game image, we're going to use our snapshot. Assets, games. So remember we had a Frogger D64. We're going to use our snapshot this time. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to go ahead and remake our firmware. We do not need to back up our NAND again, nor technically do we have to restore BASIC, but we do want to delete all the games first. Oops, yeah, we have to back up. And we'll hit make. Save. E. Save. Yes, we already had one on there. We're going to override it. Great. Cancel, close, close. Let's go ahead and open and eject, just because I like to be safe. Eject. Perfect. We're going to pull it out. We're going to head right back to our... Let's go ahead and flip back on over to our Elgato stream. All right. We're going to go back and we're going to flash it again. You'll notice this time it runs a little faster because there's no NAND backups going on. So you probably have gathered that it's not a very simple task to just throw a bunch of games on here and hit the button, right? There's a lot of prep work that needs to be done. There's a lot of testing that needs to be done. And there's a lot of ways that you can maximize your experience. Now, if you're using this on the C64 Maxi, it has a working keyboard. But if you're using this on a C64 Mini, you'll have to plug in a USB keyboard to get around all this nonsense. And you don't want to do any of that stuff. So hopefully this Frogger solution works well for us. So Frogger's still there. We just made some changes. We used the Snapshot instead of the loader, right? Hey, now that worked great. So F1 to start the game. Look at that. And the controls work. The buttons don't have to be reset. Oops. So look at that. So we can use snapshots to actually make these games load better, faster, get around intro screens and cracks and all the stuff that makes it a real pain in the butt. Awesome. Now, we obviously have a bunch of other games to test. For the sake of argument, we're not going to be testing these other games. In fact, I'm going to let you guys do that on your own with your own games. Let me go ahead and close this down. So let's take a look at building our firmware. We went ahead and we selected our options. We did our first run backup and we saved it to the USB. But we also took the next step. We flashed our firmware, which was step 6. We went ahead and copied our backups, and we tested some of our games. Now, we only got one that actually worked right out of the box, right? So we have some other work to do. But in reality, that's what we have to do to make this work out. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you got something out of this. This is a great tool, and I'm very, very excited that it's available. This seemed completely impossible unless you were willing to open up your C64 Mini or Maxi and solder a JTAG or some weird hardware thing to it. This seemed impossible. But thanks to the very, very hard work of some good folks, some good developers out there, we actually have this amazing tool to help us get our favorite C64 games. So listen, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. We'll be doing some other tutorial type videos to help you out with the C64 Mini in future episodes. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Shane R. Monroe. Thank you so much for watching.